I am sick of the megapixel wars. I'm tired of my gear becoming obsolete in what feels like minutes after purchasing it, and I'm over buying new gear. And for all of these reasons, we are talking about the Nikon D800E today. So before we get out and use it, let me give you a little backstory on how I ended up here. So it all started back in the 80s when my mom got on a boat and left Thailand with her family. No, but really, if you've been following along with my channel for a while, first off, I thank you greatly for that. But if you've caught on, I'm in between gear for my professional grade work. I sold out of the Alpha series a while back, went to Panasonic, and then sold all of that gear, aside from the GH5 Mark II, which I'm filming with right now. And then I bought the Nikon Z7 because I love their color philosophy, and I just wanted to see what they're up to these days. I found a good deal on it, and then I sold the camera again because I just didn't like it. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad camera by any stretch, just wasn't for me. The short and sweet of it, I have a lot of Nikon digital lenses for my DSLRs that I wanted to use, and I couldn't because I didn't benefit from autofocus, even when using their FTZ adapter. Now, I could have dealt with that, but I didn't want to burn through thousands of dollars investing in Z-mount glass when I felt like I had good lenses I could have used anyways. Furthermore, I do like my SD cards a little too much to give up them for the XQD format. I will one day, but today is not the day. So after selling that camera, I got a great deal on this D800E, sub $300, and I thought I would give it a whirl. Now you're probably saying, Matt, why would you go back 10 years and 10 megapixels for this dinosaur camera? Well, let's go find out why. So my setup is pretty simple today. It's just the D800E, the Tamron 28-75 constant f2.8 lens, which I couldn't use with autofocus on the Z7, which is why I got rid of it, a tripod, and a variable ND filter so I can slow down when I need to. So there's a bike in the middle of this river that I want to photograph. The only issue is it's in the middle of the river, and the composition I want should entail me to go in the middle of the river. The downside of that is it's still running water. We haven't had a lot of snow or cold days here in the Northland this year, but we'll risk it. I've already eaten it a couple times making YouTube videos this winter, so why not? I don't know. Yeah, that didn't work. So now I gotta go retrieve my lost ND filter. Hopefully I can do that. Let me go ahead and address it now if you didn't click out of this video because of it. Yes, I'm filming in what could be considered as an obsolete aspect ratio, and yes, it was on purpose. I'm just sick of the monotony on YouTube right now with the same old YouTube cinematics where everyone's trying to recreate the same old. You know what I'm talking about. Very, very crisp images, super slow motion, and awkward sound effects. I'm so sick of looking at it. And this is just my protest. So we'll talk specs when I'm back in my warm house. Right now, I'll just say something that's probably pretty obvious. This by no means is a street shooting setup, nor would I think this would be a good camera today for street photographers. It's heavy, bulky, hard to one hand, and you have to kind of use two hands to get your settings right with the D800E anyways. I don't think I'm in focus. This is a little continuation of the GH5 Mark II testing. What did we learn today aside from that contrast-based autofocus just isn't a thing? Don't wear Crocs when you're trying to do photography in the winter. You might get gangrene and a frozen foot. So before I get my shins lopped off, let's go back to the house and talk about the D800. We are done chasing waterfalls with the D800E. Shout out to TLC. I apologize for that pun. The first thing that I noticed when coming back to this generation of Nikon, especially after using a whole host of different systems, camera gear, and bodies throughout the years, both professionally and for my YouTube alike, is how beautiful the images are coming straight out of the camera with no post-producing on this specific generation of Nikons. They just have this certain 3D quality while still maintaining true to real life tones and colors that, again, subjective, can't be emulated in post-production. And speaking of that, if you need to send your images to the chopping block, the NEF files or the NEFs are bendy, if not the bendiest, and this is a 36 megapixel sensor, so you have a whole lot of real estate to work with. Now, if you're just getting into the Nikon system, or you're looking for your first full-frame camera, or want a megapixel monster, you might be wondering when you look at the D800, why is there so many iterations of the same camera? What's the E? Why is it different than the normal 800? What about the D810? What's the A all about? Well, to break it down, the D800 and the D800E came out at the same time. The difference between the two is the D800 OG has an anti-aliasing filter, whereas they took that out in the E. Now, why would you do such a thing? And why do you need an AA filter? Well, what that does is having one reduces color artifacts and moire that a Bayer sensor might leave behind. But when you remove it, you get a sharper image. And where's the D810 come in all this? Well, it doesn't have an AA filter anyways. It has a newer sensor and a few more upgrades, such as a little faster autofocus. But to me, they're all about the same camera. Which one should you get? I'd pick the one that's... My boiler's going off. I apologize. Sing to me. I would go with the most affordable one I could find that still looks like it has some structural integrity. What's important here is the D810 fixed a crucial catastrophic failure that the previous generation here, such as the D600 and the D800 had, where the sensors would suck in oil and dust, rendering the sensor useless. The good news, however, is the bodies you'll find on today's market are more or less sussed out of the market, and you won't really be running into that issue anymore. Nikon took care of all the people that happened to, so even the high mileage bodies such as this one that's nearing 300,000 shutter accutations is still kicking and going strong. Now, why the D800 or the D800E, D810 on today's market? Well, it's very affordable. You can find one of these cameras going for 200 to 500 bones on the used market. And again, the reason that I personally went to the DSLR system and sold the Z7 that I had for a couple days, you get a whole heritage of beautiful lenses backlogged when you go with their DSLR system. And a lot of them you can't carry over the autofocus abilities with the Z mounts. Now, if you have a lot of money and need corporate gigs, of course, you can go with the Z mount. But if you're working on a budget, say the Z7, which is running at around $1,500 for a good copy and a nice lens, maybe, I just say bank that money, get an old D800, some tungsten lights, and go to town with your photography career. The downside of these old cameras like the D800 and the D800E, if you're a hybrid shooter, there's not much for you. There is a mic jack, full HD, and really that's about it. But at the end of the day, the person that I would cater the D800 to would be, again, maybe someone that's just trying to get into full frame photography or wants a high megapixel sensor. But for sure, people who like to shoot landscapes or studio photographers, because the dynamic range is beautiful on these old Nikons. Well, that is all I got for you today. I hope you enjoyed. Maybe you learned something. Thank you for watching. Sub to Matt's Notes on Instagram. I'll get back to posting, I know. Thank you. See you later.